Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this week's study, the first study this week in the morning. And we're going to be looking at Daniel 11, verse 3 and 4, really 4 to 6, but here more particularly verse 4, and placing these on a line. So if you can, join me in a word of prayer. Dear Father in heaven, thank you for the time that we have here this morning, for all the things that you teach us, and for the light that you are giving to our feet. We just pray for your Spirit's presence to be here, that you can bless each person and the struggles that they face each day, that you can bless their families, and Lord, that you can use us to reach those around us. Help us to understand these things that we are studying and to correct any errors that we may have, is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. Good morning again, everyone. Now, what you see here is a little bit of work that I done to set this up. And just gonna change a few things here. Making some of this stuff bigger. So this is a chart of some of the principal dates that we're going to look at. And I don't know if this will work. That works fine. Just wanted to make things a little bigger. Over to the left, you have the verse with the Hebrew numbers for each of the words or phrases that are represented by Hebrew number. And, but I guess probably before we look at this chart, we're going to have to do a quick review. So we're going to look at these verses that we've been studying. Now, we had completed understanding verse 2. That is, we had applied this to Revelation chapter 17, to the 7 kings, 5 are fallen, 1 is, and we had established that the one that is Biden, not Trump, and so that we are in the time of the one that is, which is Greece. And the symbol that placed us there, does anybody remember the study that we had done that placed Biden as the one that is? It was based on a study that Colin had done. What was the date that helped us establish that? Anybody remember? Okay, I'll show you the diagram. So this is the diagram that we had. And this diagram has 1,533 days, 219 weeks. And there's 2 different periods of them. There's one that ends on March 27th, 2021, and March that ends on January 20th, 2021. These are 65 days apart, 66 exclusive. And the 1,533 days on the top, that goes from November 9th. I'm not sure why I have November 9th. It's not November. Did some, oh yes. November 9th, 2016. So that's going to be the one that Colin did, right? November 9th, and that's going to be 65, 66 days. To the Glen Park Paneum one, and that is the one where I'm counting 1,533 days to March 27th. So we have these 2 periods. We can see it's a prophetic mirror, parallels in some ways the prophetic mirror of the 225/20s. Here, instead of 46 days marking the end of the 2 periods, it's going to be 65, but of course that's a number in the prophetic mirror. And it places January 20th, 2021 with 1798, right? So we have that significant number there. So the January 20th date is the date that we're looking at. It comes from this study. So when we go back to Daniel chapter 11, and we begin looking at Greece, that is Alexander, right? We know that Xerxes loses to Greece. He's going to stir up all against the realm of Grecia. He's going to lose to Greece. And then we're going to have a mighty king stand up. And he shall do according to his will. So that characteristic would place a parallel between Alexander and the papacy prior to 1798. So what we're doing is we're taking this and we're applying it out in our line that Alexander is going to apply, that the fall of his kingdom is going to apply to the fall of the Soviet Union. So there are some interesting details here that we are going to look at dealing with the Hebrew numbers that illustrate that. Now, the other thing that we had done is we had looked at the Afghan War. Now, why did we look at the Afghan War? That is the Soviet-Afghan War. Why did we look at it? Because we looked at the dates of it, right? And it's going to have some significant dates in it. But we're going to see that this is this mighty king. This is the Soviet Union standing up in this war. It's going to be a proxy war against the US, but it's going to be fought out in Afghanistan for 9 years and a couple of months, nearly. So, anybody remember why we looked at that war? What is it about the dates? So the Afghan War goes from December 24th, 1979 to February 15th, 1989. Why is that significant?
Well, we're thinking about when the Pope was taken captive, Pius VI on February 15th, 1798.
Okay. Yeah, so we have that the 15th date that is marking the end of that war. We also have December 24th. Now, December 24th isn't quite December 25th, but it does relate to December 25th. That's Christmas Eve, and we know that Christmas Eve relates to Christmas, right? And that December 25th date becomes part of the fall of the Soviet Union. That is, in 1999, the Soviet Union is going to fall on December 25th. So 1991. So that's going to be from the beginning of that war, 1991, to the complete fall of the Soviet Union in 1991 is going to be a period of 12 years, right? So that seems significant in and of itself. Now, so the fall of the Soviet Union then has, it has the Soviet-Afghan War. And then it has, of course, November 9th, 1989, and it has December 25th, 1991. So it has these dates in there. Now, we also noted that from 1798, February 15th, 1798 to February 15th, 1989 is a period of 109 years. And that's significant because it has a symbol of 11-9 in it. And it's also the center year, if I remember correctly, dealing with the 70 weeks. So if you look at the center year, it's going to be 191 BC, right? So 191 BC is that Colin had presented in the study. I'm getting noise from somewhere. I'm not sure where that's coming from. So we have that 191 BC, and Dwight had done a study during our camp meeting in the summer regarding the 191 and its relationship to 11-9 and 9/11. So we can see why that is. When we look at this verse, what we see is we see verse 3, This is representing that war, or that period of time in which he rules with great dominion and does according to his will. And when he stands up, his kingdom shall be broken. So that's going to represent the fall of the Soviet Union. And shall be divided toward the four winds of heaven. So we're going to look at this as well and the significance of it. And not to his posterity, nor according to his dominion, which he ruled, for his kingdom shall be plucked up, even for others besides those. Now, I've worked on some of this myself here a little bit, some of these numbers, some of the math, but I haven't put it all together yet, so we're going to do that. And what we're saying that this verse 4 represents part of our history. Now, verse 5 and 6 also has some symbols in it, which we're still going to take time to look at. We looked at the end of years and the significance of some of these numbers in verse 6 as well. But today we're just going to look at verse 4. At least I think it might take all of today to get through verse 4 in drawing these things on a line. So here is the line that I'm beginning to draw. And you can see I have a line drawn out, some of these dates. I have the Afghan War there represented. It's a period of 3,341 days.
You might want to switch your screen.
Sorry about that. That's better. So you can see that now. So you can see this is December 25th, 79 to February 15th, 1989. This is going to be, let me see if I can find this here. Don't like the way this goes, but basically, oops. This is going to reach back to 1798. I'm just going to put this in here. So from 1798 to the end of this war, right, to the February 15th, 1989. So I could probably put here 215. Oops, the wrong keyboard shows in here. I do. That's going to be a period of 191 years, right? So okay, and then we have 276 days to the fall of the Soviet Union, beginning on November 9th, 1989. That occurs after a period of 776 cardinal days. 777th day is December 25th, 1991. The number 276, it's a different iteration of 627, June 27. But it's also the divisors. If you take the divisors of 276, they add up to 360. So it has some characteristics relating to time. And then we have September 11th on here. And then we have to put some other dates on here. So these are just, these dates will change here. Now, we looked at some of these numbers. So we have this number, when he shall stand up. Now, what I have there is a chart of some of these dates that we're going to put on this line. But when I have when he shall stand up, I take this number 5975. I don't know if everybody can see that there very well. If I zoom in. So you can see this 5975. And this number, if you look at it here, it shows up on this chart. That is, if we count from September 11th to January 20th, 2018, we get 5975 days. Now, we can see here that this January 20th date, what does it relate to? We talked about it earlier. Now, if we look at the date 3 years later, January 20th, 2021, right, we have the inauguration of Biden. So it brings us to a date 3 years before Biden's inauguration. So that's September 11th, 2001 to January 20th, 2018, 5,975 days. So we just say that this number, when he stands up, it relates to our earlier study on the presidents of the United States. And it's covering the same history, but this one is dealing with the fall of the Soviet Union. So we still are just looking at the symbols. We're not really making an interpretation of what it means. Now, it says he shall stand up. That's that number. His kingdom shall be broken and divided toward the four winds of heaven. Now, here we have some interesting numbers. The first one I want you to look at is his kingdom. So the Hebrew number for kingdom is 4438. Now, we don't have 4438 on this chart, but we do have 4384, the same 4 digits. So can we take some digits and look at an iteration of those digits as significant? You can see I have 4384 here. That's going to be from the start of the Soviet-Afghan War to the fall of the Soviet Union on December 25th, 1991. So is that significant? Can I take that word kingdom, 4438, and look at the span of days as 4384 and see that there's a relationship? Can we do that?
Yeah, I'd have to agree potentially.
Okay, potentially.
Okay,
Yeah.
now, one question. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Okay,
In your-
okay.
In your second column, you have a very strange number configuration at the head.
Yeah, that's just because I had the wrong keyboard selected when I put that in
Okay.
there. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
No, potentially you could have this, yeah. Because
Okay.
you have the 4s, you have the 3, and you have the 8. They're just in a different order.
Right. Now you'll see also that word kingdom is going to be later in the verse where it says, according to his dominion which he ruled, for his kingdom shall be plucked up, even for others besides those. So we're going to have, so Gorbachev resigned 12/26/91. I know that. So anyway, we're going to have that word kingdom show up again. But it's also going to be connected to here. We're going to see another number. According to his dominion, nor according to his dominion. That word dominion is 4915. Now, we also have another iteration of that number, and that's 4591. And that's going to be from the end of the Afghan War to September 11th, 2001. So we have 2 examples of that in this verse. where we can take the numbers and we can place them on dates that we have already established as part of this history. Right? So does that make sense to people that we can do that? Because now we have two witnesses.
I would stand by potentially.
Okay, you would still say potentially?
Yeah.
Okay, so even though we have these two, we already have these dates in there, and it happens twice.
I understand. I mean, I'm walking through the logic on this, so.
Okay, so we have that example of the number. Now, at the end of the study on Thursday, I had said that we have a mathematical formula where it says, his kingdom shall be broken and shall be divided toward the four winds of heaven. And so what I did is I took the number broken and I divided it. So I divided it in half because the word divided means to cut in half. And then I took the four winds and I added that to that number. And the number I got is, first, even before I do that, let's just look at the four winds. So if we take the four winds, 702 and 7307, and we add them together, we get 8,009. So I just want to note here, we have 8,009 on this list. I had put it as December 20th, 2011. So if you count from the end of the Afghan war, you get this 8,009. But now what we're going to do is we're going to take this 8,009 and we're going to add half of 7665. Right? So half of 7665, you're going to get, of course, 0.5. But we're just going to ignore that. We get 3832. Now, if you look from that date, January 11th, 2011, you'll see if we go here on this column, you can see this here, and we go 3832, which is half of 7665, it brings us to July 18, 2021. So that's simply this date here, this or this number here. Is that the number? No, it's going to be, yeah, I think that's the number that we got. Yeah, so that's going to be 8009 plus 3832, which is going to be 11,841. That is, if we take this as a calculation, as a formula, broken is divided into 3832, and we add it to the four winds. And if we do that, we get this July 18, 2021. Now, of course, that's 1 year to the day past July 18, 2020. Now, we're going to have a presentation by Dwight on that date, on July 18, 2021. That's on the Sabbath. And he's going to, and so I'm just going to look this up. No, so he's going to have the presentation on the 17th, pardon me. So in 2021, we're going to have this presentation on July 17th, about July 18th. And you're going to note 160 days to December 25th, 2021 from July 18th.
Correct.
Right. So that's going to give us a December 25th date. Now, I didn't put it on the chart here. I did put a December 25th, 2023 date. It's just the charts only give me 10, you can only save 10 dates. But I think that's significant then that we can, there's 14 rows that we can do now. Well, that would be nice. So maybe I should redo this chart and put in the extra rows. But anyway, that's all I did. I only thought we could save 10 rows. But that July 18, 2021 date then becomes significant because we've already marked it in our history. Even though it's 1 year after July 18, 2020 was marked. And the 161 days from July 17th, 2021 is a division of the 777 into 616 and 161. Though Dwight was focusing upon the 160 days. Okay. So from July 18th. Then we have, so there are some other things I'm trying to remember, everything that we've done. Oh, yes. Now, the one that's actually quite interesting, if I take the four winds of heaven, so we have these numbers, 702 and 7307. So that's 8,009. And we add them to 8,064. We're going to get the number 16,073, right? So 8,009 plus 8,064. So the phrase, the four winds of heaven, if we take each of those Hebrew numbers and add them together, we get a period of time that goes from December 24th, 79, and we would do an inclusive count, and it would bring us to December 25th, 2023. That's a date that's coming up in our lines. So we got the December 25th date. So, technically, if you look at that, it's a period of so 79, 11 plus 23. So it's a period of how many years? 167. So you're going to have 21 plus 23. So it's a period of 44 years. Right? So it's a period of 44 years from the beginning of this and 1 day, if we do it as an inclusive count. So 16,173 inclusive days ends up being 44 years and 1 day. Now, is that significant that we can take the four winds and we can spread them over this history? Or am I just way off base here with all of this math?
No, I think you're making some very valid points with everything else considered.
Okay, because all we're trying to establish here is something that we suggested. We suggested that this verse relates to our history, relates to the fall of the Soviet Union, and that the Soviet Union here is this power that is Greece, that is the globalists. So we already understand this. It's just, can this verse be applied in this way? That if we take Alexander's kingdom and we can parallel it to the fall of the Soviet Union. And it seems that we can parallel the fall of the Soviet Union to the fall of the papacy in 1798, because there are two different times of the ends, 1798 and 1989. In 1798, it's going to be the globalists, right? France, atheism, Egypt, coming against the papacy. And then in 1989, the roles are going to be reversed. And so we can show then that this history is connected in many different ways that we already have established. But the 191 years ties into this February 15th, 1989. So, when we look at the time of the end, of course, we mark November 9th, 1989, right, as the time of the end. But we know that it didn't just happen in a day. that there was a lot of things that happened beforehand. And first was this war, this proxy war. And that war ended. Why? Why did the war end? Did this have anything to do with the fall of the Soviet Union? Why did it end?
Because of the economic burden on Russia, on the Soviet Union.
Okay, but yeah, but they chose to end it, their withdrawal from Afghanistan, right? So, I mean, they're going to start this on May 15th, 1988. We don't have that date on here. They're going to start it. It's going to end on February 15th, 1989. So it's going to be because of Mikhail Gorbachev. He's going to become the General Secretary of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, right? So what is his thinking? We know that there is this economic pressure that's being placed upon the Soviet Union. And we know it was definitely economic. What else?
I'm just not quickly recalling.
So, well, what was Gorbachev trying to do in the Soviet Union?
He was trying to reform what had gone on in the Soviet Union.
Okay, yeah. So they have a thing called perestroika. What is that?
Restructuring.
It's restructuring. So now that's going to start, once Gorbachev comes into power, right? So there's a lot of changes that are being made in the Soviet Union. So we have perestroika. So that would have a part to play in it as well. And why do they need this? And they also have a thing called glasnost, which means transparency, right? So there's these two Russian words that are being talked about at that time. So he wanted to change the economy from a command economy, right? So, I mean, it's kind of a mixed economy, maybe is the best way we could look at it. So moving away from more communism to a type of socialism. But, there's a lot of people that are unhappy. And the economic pressure put on by the US is definitely weakening the economy in the Soviet Union. And so they're going to make these changes. Okay. So we can see that the Soviet-Afghan War ends as part of the fall of the Soviet Union, right? But it's not just that they lose the war. Okay. Okay, so we can agree with that.
That works.
Okay. So this is all part of this history. So that's what we can decide here. I mean, we can look at this, we can say that this is 1989, the time of the end. but it's including this war in here, the Soviet-Afghan War. And so when we put this on a line, we can see, you know, where is the time of the end? The time of the end is still going to be the same place. But you have this period of time in which you have this war. You could say it's the period of darkness or something like that. But the Soviets are fighting against the United States through this proxy war in Afghanistan. And then 276 days from when that war ends, the wall, the Berlin Wall, falls. And then we have 77 inclusive days, or if we want to count 777 days to Gorbachev's resignation on December 26, 1991, you can do that. But the point is, this history is well established in connection with our history. But we do have these other numbers, right? The 5975, the 4438, and we can take iterations of those numbers and match them up to the beginning of the Afghan War and the end of the Afghan War. So I think that's very significant. So if I want to, I guess, illustrate this, make this clearer here, we can take this number. I'm just going to give it a color. I don't know how I do this. I guess I can highlight it as yellow and connect it to this. Where is it here? That one's going to be, where is it? This one. Okay, so that number is going to be highlighted, just matching these numbers. This number here, I'm going to highlight. It's a different color. So that's this one. And we also have this number later on, so I'm just going to match it. I guess we could have included this. And then I have this number here, the 4915. And I'm just going to highlight it. So you can start to see that these numbers are not arbitrary. And then I can take all of these, the four winds of heaven. So I'm just going to do it this way. Just going to mark the H's here. And show that that's going to add up to this number, right? But I also have the mathematical formula where I take this number, I'll do it like this. Going to divide it. And then add to it these two numbers. Oops. Just want this part of the number, not the whole thing. No. Now those numbers, like colors, are kind of close together, but anyway, you can kind of see how that works. So that number is going to give me this number. So we start to see things. Of course, the four winds themselves can give me this number. 8009. So we start to see that we have some patterns here. We have the 8009 is going to mark January 20th, 2011. That's just the four winds themselves, not the four winds of heaven. And then we have the 5975 giving us January 20th, 2018, 7 years later. And then I simply marked this January 20th, 2021 date, which is the date for Biden. And I haven't established any numbers there other than we can see that that's 10 years from January 20th, 2011. So anything else here that we should note? I know I've done all this work and I haven't really participated other than me telling you. And there's probably more here. But is this not enough to establish that this narrative is describing our history? That's the main thing here.
I think it's establishing a good prima facie case.
Okay. And then we can see here, just to make this one clear, the four winds. So I'm going to just put that number in there. That's going to be 8009. So 8009 days. That's going to be the four winds. Now that's going to be from February 15th, 1989. So I probably have to put it here from the end of this to September 11th. So you can see that the end of this war is connected with September 11th, 2001 by a symbol of the four winds. Is that seem symbolically relevant in how we understand these lines? Because what are the four winds representing?
Strives of war.
Okay, yeah, and we're going to say, that it's connected to Islam as well, right? But it's not just about Islam. Now we can see, of course, the Afghan war is about Islam, right? So we can see that war and the end of that war is connected to, now I put it at September 11th. It's actually not September 11th. It goes to, I don't know where I need September 11th one. Well, that was a different one. So that's going to be part of me. We got to do this differently. So 4591. That's 4591 days, and I have to put in this other date. So I'm doing this wrong. I knew I must have been doing something wrong. So this is going to go January 20th, 2011. That's what we want here. And there we go. And then we're going to take this and put in this. So now we have to connect the end of this war to January 20th, 2011. Now, and we know that's an inauguration date, but is there an inauguration in 2011?
Technically, yes.
Okay, so what happens in 2011?
Those that were elected to the House and Senate in 2010 would have been installed.
Right. So there's always an inauguration if there's people that are elected, right?
Correct.
Okay. So if there's people, now we have the president who's also inaugurated. but he would have been inaugurated, because the election was in 2008, right? It was election in 2008 and 2012, and then the inaugurations. Am I doing that right or not? Just trying to remember. So inauguration in 2009.
The 2008 would have been inaugurated in 2009.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we know in 2017 we have an inauguration. That's going to be Trump. Right. So that's going to be 8 years after 2009. So we have inaugurations that are occurring with presidents every 4 years. So this 2011 one is not an inauguration of a president, but it is a January 20th date. And we already have another January 20th date. That's going to be 2018. So that's going to be 7 years later. But this one is 2018. That's going to be 1 year after we have a president inaugurated. So it's going to be 1 year after Trump was inaugurated, right? So January 20th, 2018. And that's going to be 5975. That's going to count from September 11th, 2001. Now then, so we would, we can put this in here. I'm going to put this other inauguration date in here. So this is going to be 1/20/2018. So just put in 18. This here. And that's going to be the 5975. Okay. So we can see that we have these Hebrew numbers that connect us to these January 20th dates. Now, in this one, I put on my chart, I put January 20th, 2021. I didn't put January 20th, 2024. Now that date is going to be 1,690 something. So I'm just trying to 2599 or something like that. So I could put that on this chart, the one that's coming up. So that we're going to have another inauguration of a president. We don't know who. We don't know whether it's Republican or Democrat. We don't know if it's Trump or Biden or some other person that we've never even thought of. Right? But there is going to be another inauguration. That's going to be 26 days after that. So 16,000, so 26 days after that. December 25th, 2023. Okay, so when we look at this verse, it says, when he shall stand up. So that's going to take us from September 11th to this inauguration date. His kingdom, that's going to give us December 25th, 91, shall be broken, right? And so, I mean, his kingdom is broken technically on December 25th, 91. That's the end of the Soviet Union. But we're going to take the word broken, shall be divided. So we're going to cut broken in half. towards the four winds of heaven. So we're going to take half of 7,665 and add it to 8,009. And we're going to get this number that is 18841, which is the number of days from the end of the Soviet-Afghan War to July 1821. Now we also have the phrase, the four winds of heaven, spanning this whole period from the beginning of the Afghan War to December 25th, 2023. But we just have a symbolic date there. We don't know that December 25th, 2023 is significant in any way yet, right? We know we'll have a January 20th, 2024 that follows 26 days later. Anything else that we should be able to see in the numbers here on the left with the numbers in the chart? You know, you could add lots of different numbers together and try to find different things. Now there's another one there that's not in this verse.
How did you get to 16,072 for December the 25th?
That's the four winds of heaven added together. It's 1673 in an inclusive count. This chart only shows it as a cardinal count. So if I add them up together, it's 1,673 days. And if I count from December 24th, 1979 to December 25th, 2023, it's 16,073 days. The same number of days as taking the four winds of heaven and adding them together.
Okay.
Okay. Now there is another number in there that connects to December 25th, 2023 as well. So I don't know if people see what I'm talking about, but I want you to think about it. There's some number there on the bottom of this chart, so connected with this date, that is significant.
Now, which date are you referring to?
Date and
What?
the last date on the chart, December 25th, 2023.
So are you looking at this in line with 9/11, where if we rearrange the numbers on December 25th, 2023, we come up with 1840 instead of 8140?
Well, that's kind of interesting. It is the number 8140, but it's 8141 inclusive days.
Okay.
And when we look at Daniel 11, verse 6, so it's not in this verse, but it's in Daniel 11, verse 6, we already noted this number. And that's going to be in the end of years.
Right.
So the word years, Shana, is 8141. So we have a second witness for this as being the end of years. Does that make sense?
Okay, but now if you go back to your chart for just a second, and I know that this is off the general topic of what we've been looking at today.
Yeah.
The number just above that from 7/18 of 21.
Yeah.
7250. If we rearrange that, you come up with 2570,
Mhm.
which would be a 2520 or 7 times plus 50 of what we've talked about before.
Yeah, so
As-
the week of Christ.
Correct. Pentecost, Feast of Weeks.
Okay. Interesting there, yeah.
So
So, yeah, go on.
looking at those, it just gives you gives a little bit of another witness to this. So there's, like I said before, this is establishing a pretty good prima facie case
Mhm.
to what you've been addressing.
Yeah, so we can take this 8141 here, right? We can see that's going to be the end of years, right? So if we can, so this is the end of our chart, right? It's going to take the 4 winds. The 4 winds are going to bring us from the beginning of the Afghan war to December 25th, 2023. And that's going to be a second witness is from September 11th. We're going to have this end of years, right? So this word years here, we could just simply do, well, this. Need a transparent color. Just do it like, whoops, I ended up getting 2 boxes here. Let's do this again. So I want this. You know, these end of years, that's going to match up with that. And we know that this is a symbol for 11-9. So the fact that we can count from 11-9, the end of years as 8141, so that's an inclusive count, I think is pretty significant to establish this line. That we have the 4 winds give us that year, that date, and also the end of years gives us that date. So if we're going to take this here on the chart, we would have to put this as 2023. And we've already been marking December 25th as significant, right? So in our history. Okay. Now what about this number 7093, end? The end of years. I mean, we have a number 7093. We haven't done anything with it, and I haven't tried anything with it. And one of the ways I usually do this with a number, I'll just show you. You know, when I'm looking at a number, you know, let's say 7093, I might first just divide it by 365.25, just to see how long it is. So it's a period of 19 years, and multiply it by 365.25. And 153 days. So now the other thing about it, even the fraction at the end is 19 years and 0.4195. And that is another iteration of that, those numbers 4915 instead of 4195. But anyway, so there are some symbols in there. But it's 19 years and 153 days. So that's 5 months. 19 years, 5 months. is there any span of time? We don't have one here on this chart that's 19 years and 5 months. But could we place it somewhere? Oops, that's not what I wanted. I wanted this one. That's just my chart. Here we go. So 7093 as a number, 19 years, 5 months. Now, if we count, because I think we looked at this before, right? So we did look at this before when we were dealing with Stephen, right? Because if you count from September 11th, 2001, you get February 11th, 2021. Okay, so that's going to be 157 days before July 18, 2021. So remember, we had looked at that. Stephen was in there with the span of time, 11,900 days to September 11th. And so we could mark the end of years in connection with 9/11 with Stevens. So we can say then that the end of years should be counted from 9/11, should be counted from September 11th. And so it's just another witness for the fact that the end of the years is being counted from 9/11. We have Daniel 11:6, which is 9/11, if tipped over, and we have this 7093 that gives us a symbol that ties us to 9/11. Okay. Now we do have these January 21st dates. So, I mean, or January 20th dates, which we're going to have to address as well. But yeah, I think just, if you're just looking at this, it makes a lot of sense. It shows that there is a connection between these dates and our lines. But we have more dates that have to be understood. That is, this first part is going to bring us to the time of the end. And then we're going to have September 11th, 2001. But it's going to tie us to these January 20th dates. But we also have this July 18, 2021 date. So we have to put it in here somehow and decide what that means. I'm just going to copy this, move it over. So somewhere over here we have, I'm just going to put it here at the end because that's the, now it's 890 days from July 18, 21 to December 25th, 2023. Any significance with 809 or 890, pardon me. 890 days. Any significance in that?
Are you looking at 2 3/4 year?
Okay, so if we take it as so it's going to be 2 prophetic years and 170 days.
Right, sorry.
Yeah, so it's going to be so 170 days. I don't know. I mean, I don't have an answer to it. I'm just asking us if there's anything we can see there. Because we know that there's 160 days to December 25th, 2021, right? So that's simply if you take 161 plus 365 plus 365, you're going to get 891. So I guess we'd actually have to count. Yeah, that's right. So we'd have to count from 15th, 16th. So 890 days. Yeah, we have a leap. Do we have a leap here and there? No. Sure why. Plus 160. So that ends up being 890. So if you take 2 years plus 160 days, obviously that's going to give you 890. $890 in a duodecimal form is 622, which is June 22nd. Interesting date or symbol. But what we don't know here is what this means, right? As far as we've been able to lay this out, we know it has to do with our history. It's going to give us some symbols: January 20th, July 18th, December 25th. So just that verse gives us that. Verse 6 witnesses to it. And it's showing that the end of days is December 25th, or the end of years is December 25th, 2023. So whatever that means, because it's a future date, we have no idea what it means. But we know that in that, so if we go back to the scriptures here, so I know we're picking at this pretty slowly, but we know that the king of the south shall be strong, and one of his princes, and he shall be strong above him and have dominion, and his dominion shall be a great dominion. So we know that this is referencing the United Nations. That is, this is referencing, even though the Soviet Union is fallen, it's not the end of the Soviet Union. It's not the end of spiritualism, right? It's not the end of globalism, of that power, of communism. It's the end of the Soviet Union. But it's not the end of communism. That is, what the Soviet Union stands for still continues. And then it just says, in the end of years, they shall join themselves together, for the king's daughter of the south shall come to the king of the north to make an agreement. But he shall not retain the power of the arm, neither shall he stand, nor his arm, and she shall be given up, and they that brought her, and he that begat her, and he that strengthened her in this times. So we have the September 11th date symbolized. We have the end of years, which brings us to December 25th, 2023, right? Which would parallel the end of the Soviet Union in 1991. So what else do we do here with this? What do we do with this story? Where are we going to place this story? Because we were studying this before and we tried to look at this story, but if this has to do with the end of years, this might still be a future event. Right? And if it's a future event, for the king's daughter of the south shall come to the king of the north and make an agreement, this would be a league that we could see as being the Sunday law. Is that possible? Now, we already have December 25th as a symbol of the Sunday law in our history. And we know these anniversary dates are important. Okay, anything else?
This has just been a lot, kind of a mind-stretching study today.
Yes, it is. But it does help us to understand verse 6, I think, that we can see that this is referring to the Sunday law. At least connected with it. So the king's daughter of the south. So we're saying the south here is globalism. And they have a daughter, right? So this is some kind of church ideology, right? Religious philosophy. It's going to come to the king of the north to make an agreement. But she's going to fall again, right? So the south is going to fall, right? Just as the Soviet Union did, right? She'll not retain the power of the arm, neither shall, now it says, she shall not retain the power of an arm, neither shall he stand, nor his arm. So he's the king of the north, right? The king of the north is not going to stand, nor his arm. And she's not going to retain the power of the arm, but she shall be given up, and they that brought her, and he that begat her. Right? So that's the one that begat her. And he that strengthened her in these times. So who is that he? Is that she shall be given up, and they that brought her, and he that begat her. So that's going to be the daughter's father, right? So that's the king. So that's the king of the south. He will be given up. So what is this illustrating? So the king of the south is going to come and make, we know what it refers to historically. The question is, what does it refer to in our line? If we're going to tie this to from 9/11 to December 25th, 2023.
Again, I'm thinking of when Trump and the Pope met, and the Pope looked so furious at the end of that meeting, and I think that's when the Pope was trying to encourage Trump to form a Sunday law, like to impose a Sunday law, and failed. But beyond that, I think it's when they do impose the Sunday law, like further on from 23, right? It will eventually all come to naught. The king of the south will come to naught, the king of the north will come to naught, the Sunday law will come to naught, and Christ will reign.
Right. Yeah. So I think this is illustrating the Sunday law. Now, it's placing it here, and we're not saying the Sunday law is happening on the December 25th, 2023, right? We're just looking at this as a symbol because December 25th is a symbol of the Sunday law in our history, right? We can look at it in 508, the baptism of Clovis. There's other December 25ths. They become prophetically significant. We had it December 25th, 2021, symbolizing a Sunday law. And so again, we have a December 25th, this time 2023, symbolizing a Sunday law. But we're not marking a Sunday law there. So we still have other numbers to analyze, which we haven't. But what about the number 2,220? This is the arm. That's basically 6 years and 1 month. 6 years and 29 days. Probably a bit, yeah, that's a 365 day. Do we have any?
222 is third of 666. When you're talking about arm, you're talking about armed forces,
Yeah,
the military.
okay. Okay, so some things there.
So what about then the arm being like the threefold power to reach a third of 666? I don't know, maybe I'm getting a little weird, but
Okay.
force of man, right? It's man and Satan working together to try to
Yeah.
turn the whole world into Satan's kingdom. 666.
Okay. So let me see. I'm going to go back to. I go just looking at some dates here that we have. So there's some dates that we haven't put in here that we probably could, and I'm going to spend a bit of time analyzing these dates more. Okay, so I can't see anything with that offhand. Now it's interesting when we have this calculation, right? The one that his kingdom shall be broken and shall be divided towards the four winds of heaven. Now we did a calculation using broken, dividing it into two, and then adding it to the four winds. Now, we also could maybe do another calculation. So we could divide the kingdom, because it says the kingdom shall be broken. So it's going to be broken and divided. So what am I doing? So 219. So I divided the kingdom into half. And if we add it to the four winds of heaven, four winds of heaven, if we just add it to the four winds, let's see what happens there. Okay, so we get 3028. I don't know if that's significant. So there's just other things that we can do. Right? There's probably a lot more. Any other thoughts about this?
Not at the moment.
Okay. I don't know what I'm doing here. Okay. Yeah, I have to think about this a little bit more. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to do with that. I know if we count from September 11th, you can get 3028 inclusive days to December 25th, which is going to be so it's going to be like 8 years and plus later. But anyway, so just to kind of sum this up. So we've done all this work. We can see that there is a structure here. And we just haven't drawn any real conclusions of what this means, other than that we can see that it's our history. And so we're going to have to finish this and put it on a line and try to make some more sense out of it. And the thing is, there's probably other dates that we need to have in here that the numbers are going to show us. We just don't have them all. So any final thoughts before we close with prayer?
Not right now.
Okay. Yeah, so I know you're going to have to process this. We'll come back to it tomorrow. We'll go through it again and then see what other things we can find. Okay, so let's close with prayer. Dear Father in heaven, thank you for the study this morning and for each person involved. We know that This is a lot of things for us to take in, and so we need your help in processing these things and understanding them and applying them to these prophecies to give us light for our feet. Be with each person. May you bless them and help them in their personal walk with you. May your angels watch over them, we pray and ask in Jesus' name. Amen.